set
It
it.
has like half battery left.
I have a question about the secondary data thing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that there's like a huge database online with existing test scores and whatnot that we can use?
There are multiple. There are hundreds, if not thousands. Well, there are thousands of databases like that.
And how do we go about finding
So it depends on what it is that you're looking. So
Right.
there are thousands of them, but there may not be a single one that looks exactly at what you're looking
Yeah.
at. That's frustrating. But basically, the way that you do it, the way that you find out about whether such things exist, is from the literature.
Okay.
From reading the literature, you hear things like, we used the ECLSK, which is the Early Childhood Longitudinal Study, which is a really, really popular. It's a national data set that's collected by the federal government, federally funded, and so there are data from the ECLSK, and you'll read like articles on Head Start, an article on children's cognitive functioning, an article on ADHD, many topics, but they'll say in the method section, we use data from the ECLSK. So if you're looking in your area of your topic and you find an article that mentions a data set, you can say, oh, I wonder if that's public. And if it's not public, meaning like it's available online, you might be able to email the researchers and say, would you mind sharing this data set with me? And they might say, sure. And most of the time, it's like people are more than happy to share, especially if you say, they'll come up with agreements like, happy to let you use our data, just we need to be authors on anything that you publish. Very fair. Some of them make you pay for it. Like, not anything crazy, but, so it just depends on what it is that you're
Right.
looking for.
Is it legit to use another study's data set?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great to use another study's data set, because the reason why it's a benefit to use a data set and to have different people use it is then it makes that data set more robust. Like one person finds these findings, if someone else can't corroborate those findings, then that person made a mistake. So it's definitely fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, so second page of the application, has it been approved? Have the procedures changed, and so on? And then you have to note whether data will be collected from or about any of the following protected populations. So then they list them, and then whether the project will involve any of the following: deception, more than minimal risk, and the drug. And if you're a student, what you're doing is a pilot study. A pilot study is a smaller version of a full study. So a lot of researchers, before they go out and get, request like a $100,000 grant, they'll do a smaller study just to test their instruments and make sure that their questionnaire questions are good, or that their surveys are solid, or that things go smoothly. It's like a trial run. A pilot study is like a trial run. And then you have to say whether it's being funded. Page 3 is all the exempt stuff. And then, so part 2 of the exempt stuff is that you just have to explicitly state that my research qualifies for exempt status because of the reason. So like, I just did one, so I said, I believe my research qualifies for exempt status under category 1. Research is a study of normal educational practice, and I had to actually write it out. Like, they want you to not just say 1 or 2, they want you to write out what it is that you're saying, and so on. Okay. And I think I had 1, and I think I had 3, because I was just interviewing. Yeah, it was 3A, because there are people who are officials, like in education. Okay. The HIPAA stuff doesn't relate to us because that's health. That's still on page 4. Okay. After that big dark paragraph on page 4, below it, the purpose of the study. So you have to say, it's basically like a mini proposal. So most people do their proposals and then they cut and paste into the IRB form. Or they do the IRB form and then they cut and paste into their paper, because it's just doing the same thing. So what's the purpose? What are the questions that you're trying to address? And make it really simple, so not using fancy language or terms that are specific to your field. And then how are you going to recruit people? what's your expected sample size, what are your criteria for inclusion, and what are your criteria for exclusion. So who are you going to get, like who's allowed to participate and who's not allowed to participate. A lot of times it's sort of like, so I said for my recent one, anyone who is an educator of children in Haiti is eligible to participate. Who is not eligible? Anyone who is not an educator of children in Haiti. I mean, it's like, you know, or nobody under 18, everybody under 18, kind of. But they want to make sure that you're clear about your population because they're trying to protect vulnerable populations. Part 2, how will the people be recruited? How will you identify people? And then how will people know? So you have to include things, and they have a lot of helpful forms on the NYU IRB website, which is, the IRB is called the University Committee on Activities Involving Human Subjects, UCAIHS. On their website they have forms, so they have like samples of things like recruitment letters, flyers, advertisements, and then at the time of recruitment, usually you have some kind of little statement prepared. You don't have to say it verbatim, but it just gives them a sense of what kinds of things you're going to say to the person. Like mine are emails, right? So mine just says, you know, please see Appendix A for the email that I'll be sending out to recruit participants, which just says, my name is Fabienne, I'm doing this study. If you know anybody who's eligible, you know, if you know anybody who'd be interested, please let me know. And I tell them what the study is about. I'm interested in this educational reform initiative that's happening in Haiti. If you know anybody who's involved, please let them know. Please give them my contact information. Like basic kind of stuff. And then you have to say how will people let you know how they're going to participate. So for me, it's like they're going to email me back. And then providing additional information. So what are you going to tell potential subjects when you actually meet them? So this often comes together with the informed consent thing. The informed consent is just like, it's just like a line that says like I agree to participate, but typically the statement to subjects is attached to the informed consent form because you tell them all about the study, like who you are, where you're from, your institution, why you're doing what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then tell them like I'd like to invite you to participate if you're interested. If you do say that you want to participate, I'm going to videotape, I'm going to audio tape, I'm going to observe you, I'm going to talk to you, whatever you're going to do for 20 minutes, an hour, 12 days, a year. I'm going to, you know, all the different things that you're going to do. How are you going to protect their identity? You know, I will not be collecting any names. Data will be completely anonymous, or I will be identifying you by name. However, I will assign, you know, these ID numbers, and the ID numbers will be kept separate from, you know what I mean? So you explicitly state all of that stuff. And I'm going to post some on Blackboard just to help you all out. But you say all those things like this is what is going to happen, not going to happen, and then you say, you know, so if you're okay with it, then please sign here, and that's the informed consent part. So you have to also say like what are the harms or the benefits. Those things are included in your letter. Potential harms, procedures. This is like a methods. This is all methods. What are you? Where are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? How many times? And then how are you going to address confidentiality? And then if there are any cooperating institutions, you have to also include that. Oh, we're out of time. So if you are doing, say, for instance, a study and you need to get DOE approval, then you would have to show that with your IRB application. NYU wants to see that before they give it approval. So this is the form. Anybody have any questions about any of it? Alrighty. We're going to have 2 guest speakers next week. And we're going to talk about asking questions. How are people coming along, by the way, on research questions, so on?
I think Marcella's now my advisor.
Oh, good. Okay. Woo.
So, yeah.
So you met with her?
Yes, I did. I'm going to update you by email because I didn't do that
Yeah, sure. Okay, sounds good. Would you mind?
Is that not how you stop
Yeah.
it?